review. My power literally just went out, right? To give us a few minutes. But yeah, welcome to this week's episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola, and on this channel, we talk about personal finance, investing, and the economy. And on this particular program, which holds every week, we discuss global news and what it means for your finances. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. I also confirm that my tech is working today. That my tech is working today. Before we enter one chance, right? So yes, we'll start with the news, right? Sorry. We'll start with the news. Um, Global news. Okay, now this was quite interesting news. Apple and Meta under attack over unfair EU fines. Now, what is the story, right? The for so let me split it up. First foundation. The EU is all about privacy, data security, and they're every day, all day bringing out new laws to protect their people, right? And recently, um, Meta and Apple were the victims or the recipients of the hardline of the EU regulators, right? But what's the real issue? For Apple has this ecosystem. Everybody knows about the Apple ecosystem where you can't necessarily plug in. You must meet some very stringent requirements before you can plug into the Apple ecosystem, right? So what has literally happened is that the EU is finding. For example, you can literally connect, create an what's it called, a marketplace on an Android device, right? From the Android app, from the Android store, from the Play Store, right? But Apple has been blocking that for Apple products for the iPhone. But then the EU said, "Oh, you can't do that. You must make it open whatever to everyone. Don't make it too hard, blah blah blah." And then Apple kind of agreed, but now the process of actually setting up on Apple is like choking. The approval process is very complex. There are very strong technical restrictions, and then if users of Apple devices want to like sign up for what you are offering, there's like this warning that disclaimer, and that thing will freak you out and you pull back because Apple is known for security, right? And so the fundamental thing here is that they are sort of saying that protecting the ecosystem. Now, from a business perspective, it does make sense because it's the ecosystem that is their assets. If they don't have that secure ecosystem, what are they really selling, right? And but then the EU is like, that's not my problem. I'm not particular about your profit, and I'm particular about my people having access. And so they slam them with a fine. Bam. Slide over to Meta. Meta's own is that it's data that I used to make money. Oh. So if your country is saying that I cannot freely use your data, then you will either consent, that means agree that I can use your data, give me permission to use your data, or you pay a subscription fee for me not to use your data because I need to make money. And then the EU is like, are you joking that you want me to pay for my privacy? It is debatable because the question is if you're not comfortable with Facebook and all them devices and what they do, and you're concerned about your privacy, why are you using the platform? Like even for the people that want to use the platform. But the EU is like, no, you can't actually say that the platform is free, but then you would either use my data or I will pay you for you not to use my data. And then they slammed them with 200 million euros, right? Now, in to put it into context, these are not really significant amounts to those companies, but it's the thought behind it, right? For example, I think Apple declared 79 billion in profit last year. So I mean, think about it. 500 million is a lot of money, but it won't kill them in 1 year, right? But is going down the line. It's the thought behind it. It's what's coming in front. It's Apple and Meta saying that this is so anti-America. Hi, I see some people, it's so anti-America. Why are we doing this? This is not pro-market, blah blah blah. And yes, we get it. If you are an investor in any of these companies, then you would actually realize that, um How are we supposed to make our money? And then if you now fast forward to the news around Google and the fact that they are telling them to there's a proposal right now for Google to split their to sort of spin off their search engine business, which is like their main game. Like data is the new gold, right? And so it's one of those things where we need to watch and play. Why? Because if they're able to get away with this and do it consistently, um the world of the big tech is going to change because everybody's pretty much going to have to split up. There just has to be there's just going to be something that will come up that will change the ecosystem as we know it, right? So we need to keep an eye on this because there's a business case. If you honestly want to use Instagram, you can't say that I would use Instagram, pay server fees, server costs, blah, 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 all that, design, engineers, and then they won't make money off it. And the way they make money is from data. So why would you be on the platform and not want to share your data? Why won't you be intentional about what you are putting up on the platform, right? So that it aligns with you. So we are using each other. But yeah, we have to wait and see how that pans out. Just important to note, right? Just you don't know, in case you don't know, these sessions are powered by the Money with Club. The Money with Club is a community of working professionals and business owners who learn about investment and take action. So we bring deals to the club. We provide education, have sessions. Last week we had a guest in the house in the club, who was the founder of Nairametrics, right, in Nigeria, right? So we do stuff, we do education, we do all sorts of things, right? So if you want to check us out, check us out. The website is on the screen right now. And then moving on to African news. Ethiopia is set to become the fourth African member of the BRICS New Development Bank, right? Now, what is the NDB? Let's just start with that. So it's a bank that is set up by BRICS. If you don't know what BRICS is, please go and watch our previous. But BRICS is a set of countries that are trying to change the world order. They want to make the world great again, or they want to become great and push America to the sidelines. Oh, we are here for it. Let's just see how it pans out, right? But it's actually a bank set up to offer infrastructure and development funding, right? That's what they do. And then the catch is that they don't have all those political strings. So, for example, if IMF is giving you financing, they'll give you like some particular terms, some things you have to that are not necessarily financial that you have to meet up with, right? So they provide funding without that, right? And it's almost becoming a go-to source of finance for emerging markets. And Africa really is a growing focus, right, for this bank, right? And the question now is, what does this mean? The first part is, how would America take it? We all know that there is this Make America Great movement, great again movement. And then there's the rest of the world saying, no, the cheese has moved, right? So there's a chance where, and then there's also some tweets by the current American president saying that, oh, if you are aligning with countries that are going against us, BRICS, blah blah blah, we will come for you type thing. So there's that dynamics that we have to look out for. That one. But for Ethiopia as a country, right? What does it benefit? How does it benefit them? So it's an alternative source of funding. They also have control over not just the economy right now, but their political space. They're not taking money to lose control. That trade-off is not necessarily there. And then in the long run, there's potentially a stronger economic voice, right? A stronger voice in in the global economy, right? Because these things, once you get the financing, if you deploy it properly, you grow and then you stand well, and then people know that you are a force to look out for, if you get what I mean. So in the big picture, there's really a big picture around this. Things are changing. There was before now a general flow of need, preference to the Western world. But that is changing. Everybody is finding alliances that work for them. That's literally changing right now. And it's something that we need to look out for. I talked about the fact that Standard Bank had plugged into the Chinese payment system, the alternative to SWIFT that we all know in wiring money around the world. Things are changing, right? And so for you as an individual, number one, how are you positioning? How are you positioning your business, your company? That's one. And then how are you positioning in terms of, okay, is it just dollar I should be holding? These are conversations that you need to start thinking about, because what will happen is that you'll be here if you're not aware of these changes. 20, 30 years down the line, you realize that you saw it but you didn't position. So it's very, very important, especially at this time, because things are changing quite quickly before our eyes. They are changing. And then finally, to Nigerian news, right? Nigeria's carbon market policy to unlock $2.5 billion in investment by 2030. Now, the what is it? The federal government, or the president, actually not the federal government. The president signed the carbon market policy. They announced that it had been signed, had been approved, right? And but what is it really? It's just basically saying that this is how we manage our carbon emissions in the country, right? And that policy, with every other policy, as with every other policy, that policy is going to guide how we interact with things. So you would realize that maybe before, for example, it might impact something like gas flaring, that kind of thing, because there'll be a policy around how much carbon are we emitting as a country. Maybe we'll now start having things like laws passed, or that there must be a bicycle path if the road is of this minimum or maximum speed limit type thing. Those are the things that begin to come out of it. But what does it actually mean? Like, it sounds like, yeah, but in terms of, they're saying to attract 2.5 billion, how will it attract 2.5 billion? The first thing that sounded most juicy to me is selling carbon credits, right? So if we run eco-friendly projects, right? Every time we run eco-friendly projects, forestation, solar energy, clean cooking, like maybe bicycle path, those kind of things that reduce carbon emission. These projects earn carbon credits, right? Now, what actually happens is that if you are able to do this in scale, right, you can actually sell those carbon credits to countries that are trying to meet their climate goals, right? Why? Because maybe within themselves they're not able to actually run those eco-friendly projects, but they've signed an agreement, and based on that agreement, they need to have some certain level of carbon credits, right? So that you can actually sell to them. That for me is where I see the most opportunity, right? That's one. Another thing also is that for investors that are particular about climate, preserving the ecosystem, blah, 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 they are going to be attracted to Nigeria, right? And so these projects, this reforestation, solar energy, I think for us, reforestation may not necessarily be that bankable. It will just be a carbon credit play. But solar energy, clean cooking, all those kind of things, there are opportunities, and you will find investors coming in. Why? Because most of these people will have like a fund dedicated to climate friendly projects, such that if that project ticks the box, then you get financing and you make money. Yeah. And then there's also a climate investment fund, right, that Nigeria plans to launch. If they do that, then they would get funding and they can use it to do stuff that would help everybody. Bearing in mind that beyond even the whole carbon credits, blah, 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 if you do eco friendly things, like you have a tree planting project around Lagos, for example, and then there's this law that everybody must plant a tree, there must be a certain number of trees per square meter, blah, 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 right? Apart from all the financial benefits, there's actually a health benefit too. There's a health benefit, then there's the public health benefit. Because if, for example, people are generally unwell because of carbon emission and you reduce that, people get people fall sick less and need to go to the hospital less. You know the way they say that if somewhere is not clean and there's stagnant water, mosquitoes will breed and there'll be malaria. Like, imagine now, let's reverse it. There's no stagnant water, the place is clean, blah blah blah. There'll be no malaria. And so for those that have to go to public hospitals, don't even that even have to go to private hospitals, or like they don't have enough money but gather money and go to a hospital, there's less of that. So there's a health benefit also. But what's in it for you, apart from the health benefit that I just highlighted right now? The opportunities. If you're in that space, if you know someone in that space, start making those calls, start having those conversations, right? Because once policies are set in place, the next thing is for private individuals to pick up those policies, find what they can do there and run with it. And that's how money is made. That's literally how money is made. So for the Nigerian economy, of course, diversified income, when we go into the point where we can start making carbon credit revenue, It's a good thing for us. It might not be as much as our oil, but it's still revenue and it's still in foreign currency. So it will help our efforts some way or the other, especially as we build on it over time. Which is why I do say that as an individual, you should like go for it, right? And see what opportunities you can hang on. Someone is here. Hi, Iolua. Hi. Hi, Iola. Sorry, that's Iolua. Nice to you. Good morning. Um, and then the final thing, Nigeria in talks to rejoin JP Morgan Index. Now, this I saw, and I was particularly excited about. Now, backstory. When I was a trader, I used to be a securities trader. Um, I remember that the market yields were quite high, and like it is right now. And one of the things that we used to do then was that you go short. It's trading term, like you go short and then you close your shorts and you make money, right? So I was short on a particular security. It was a treasury bill. I was short, and I was short a good size. And the next thing, and then I was short a good size, and then I was in the money, but I was waiting for the money to hit a certain target before I close my position. And so the day, so I had been watching it, and market had moved in a certain direction. I could have closed the day before, but like now, one more day, and I entered the market the following day, and then somebody came to market and started buying. I started buying, and then I'm like, why is this person buying? My short position that was in the money was now getting to flat, like zero. If I close now, I won't make any money. Was now getting to a loss. And so I now called someone and said, what's happening? Now said that, oh, Nigeria has been listed on the index. I'm like, what? I'll explain what it means. What? I just told everybody on the desk, everybody, please just call out for this maturity. Anything you see, buy. And that's why my trading days, it was fun. But what literally does it mean? So there are indices, right? That's the plural of index. So when a company, for example, everybody knows what JP Morgan is, they have an index. What happens is that there are traders that track that index, meaning that if the index has 10 companies, or 10, if it's a stock index, it has 10 companies, or if it has 10 bonds, whatever the bonds are, whatever the countries are, whatever it is that that index has, because their investment policy is that they track that index. If the index owner adds to that index, they must go and buy those assets. Add a particular asset. So let's use, if it's a gold index, right? Or if it's a commodities index, and then they had gold, silver, and bronze, but they didn't have platinum. And the gold index introduces platinum. Everybody that tracks that index will have to go and buy platinum. So the number of people that follow that index will determine how much platinum price is going to move. Why? Because if platinum was sitting down there chilling and it was 1 naira per ounce, random, right? Or $1 per ounce, and you just realize somebody comes buys at $1, and that person comes buys at one, you move to 1.1, then you move to 1.2, then you move to 1.3. That's how the price will start going up. Yeah. So let's bring it to JP Morgan index. So before, Nigeria was on the JP Morgan, and I think the no Goldman Sachs, Barclays index were on two indices, JP Morgan and Barclays, right? And what happened when they came in was the offshore guys that were tracking those index had to buy Nigerian assets. So if you add Nigeria back to your sub-Saharan Africa or your EMEA region assets, names or sovereign entities that you whatever, everybody that tracks that index will have to buy. Now put it into context. $1 million, which is nothing in any balance sheet in $1 million is 1.7 billion. If you buy 1.7, if you buy $10 million, is $10 million is no money. $10 million is one trade, is a trade lot abroad. $10 million is 10 billion in Nigeria. Yeah, just for context. So imagine if somebody says, based on the weight, I need to have $10 million worth of Nigerian assets. What is going to happen? They are going to come into Nigeria, sell $10 million to the market, get Naira, and buy Nigerian bonds. Now, imagine if somebody comes, that's one person. And imagine if there are 20 people that track that index. And so imagine there's 20 billion demand or 200 billion demand for Nigerian bonds. That's what can happen. happen with the JP Morgan index listing. Now, what would happen is that as they come to buy, prices of those things that we are seeing are cheap. Everybody buy bonds, everybody buy bonds. We are talking about it. People are looking, shouldn't it go higher? Let them come in first. You will see why your greed will choke you. So the thing that you saw and it was at 80 naira to for a unit or whatever, and you now sit at 120. I'm wondering what was I doing when it moved from 80 to 120? Right before my very before. That is what could potentially happen with a JP Morgan relisting. That is actually how it works. It will impact our FX and also impact the securities market. Now, depending on what the index actually lists, and I mean, maybe I should do a breakdown of it. If, for example, you can buy stocks, it will also affect our stock markets. I mean, if for example, the companies that track the index, part of the index, blah blah blah, includes stocks and bonds, it means that our stock market will move, our bonds market will move. Do you see where I'm going? Everything is just going to go up. But we need to keep an eye on it because this is, first of all, this is PR. In talk doesn't mean that it will happen. But you need to understand that our central bank governor was out of the country last week at some meetings, and they were talking about the progress that they have made. And we have actually made good macro progress, right? It will take time to trickle down to impact the individual, but we have made good macro progress. And those are the things that these people consider before they reintroduce you. So you have to understand what is happening. That there's a very high chance that if you just see this thing in the news like this, number one, understand how it works. When JP Morgan adds adds Nigeria back to the list, when they do that, they would communicate to the people that are in their ecosystem. It's after they communicate to people in the ecosystem and you see the ban, you now see it in the news. So it's not like you will see it immediately and you can jump on it. But what am I saying? That the macro is improving. It is not yet trickling to micro because there's a transmission mechanism and it does take time. So if it's not yet translating, doesn't mean that it's not going to, all things being equal. So if you know what you should do, buying bonds, all those things, guys, there's no in the future about it. There's no in the future. Do what you need to do now. Because it is very wild for you to think Nigeria should be selling bonds at 25 or 30. It's wild. You don't even want it as a Nigerian, maybe as an external party, yes, but as a Nigerian, you don't want it. You actually don't, because that's distress. Anyways, I hope this was useful. I had been announcing the session, the workshop, and it's holding today. Yay! I will probably push out information about it or how it went, feedback, and all that afterwards. I look forward to an amazing session. So if you signed up, see you later in the day.